How worried should we be about all this? I'm joined now by the presenter and founder of Childline, Esther Ranson, and by Dr. Claire Bale, a public health consultant who's researched the impact of the sexualised media on young people's sexual health, and also by 3 young people affected by the issues in our report. Esther Ranson, what did you make of it?
Well, I was shocked, but I was shocked really because there was one missing word throughout the film. That very nice teacher was talking about safe, healthy relationships, but that word love didn't come in at all. And it only works for us, doesn't it, really? And I'm addressing myself particularly at the girls here. If there's love involved, if you love someone, you find them very attractive and everything seems to work better. The other thing that I'm really worried about is at Childline we do hear sad stories from young people who've been involved in sexting.
But you're reacting to what you haven't heard and haven't seen. What about what you have heard and seen?
Well, what I have heard and seen is young people who are persuaded by other young people to send explicit pictures of themselves, which then go online and they have no control of. And then they feel very defiled, very ashamed, and they don't know where to turn, which is why they contact us.
Let me pause you there.
Yes.
Claire, what do you make of this?
Well, I'm very pleased to see this report come out today because I've been working with children, young people around sexualised media for many years now, researching this, and there isn't a lot of research out there, so I really welcome it because it's a very important issue. As a mother, as a nurse, you know, I welcome this kind of discussion. What I do worry about is the way that the reports, such as this, the way it's represented in the media is sensationalised, so we're told it's completely normal for young people. And when I have conducted research in this area, if I talk to young people, at first they always say to me, yes, it's definitely happening, it's a real problem for young people. But then when we start meeting and talking over time and unpicking it, actually there's lots of positive things about childhood, and there's lots of stories which suggest it's not quite as prolific as one would expect. And of course the most important thing to recognise for me is that as parents and as carers in this digital technology world, what mechanisms have we got to support young people?
Well, I guess the best test in a way, Jess and Max and Laura, is to ask you. I mean, do you think that what you saw there exaggerated the situation or represents roughly what you live with?
I think it represents it really well because it does happen a lot to most teenagers who have phones and talk to people. I think it does happen and it's a very true representation.
Do you mind if I ask Laura a question?
By all means.
John. This picture we get at Childline of young people being pressured to do things that they really don't want to do you think that's also true? Do you think it happens to people?
It does happen. A lot of people are pressured into it. Like, for example, if a boy wanted to send a picture, get a picture from a girl, he would keep pushing until she eventually gave in, because that's how they seem to think they will get girls to do it, by just asking and asking and asking.
Max, a boy's perspective.
Yeah. I feel that the girls are often pressurized into doing it, but the boy obviously will not take further action if the girl just simply says no. Like, the girl will often beat around the bush in a sense, like saying, oh no, I don't really want to. Maybe.
So to that extent, it's a bit like kind of a natural human-to-human contact.
Yeah, but like, I know many girls that have never just said a straight up no. They always say, oh no, not today, maybe another time, which gives the boy a full sense of hope for, like.
John, could I just
Yes.
come in and add to that? I think that's really important. For me, that's one of the most crucial things, is about how do we give young people the legitimacy to be able to talk about this. And actually, if we look at a lot of the resources that are out, their educational resources, they always talk about risk and harm. They never talk about, actually, it's okay for you to know what you want and to be able to say yes, to say no, even if it doesn't always fit with our idea of, you know, a relationship that involves love, and it's about experimenting or pleasure. You know, in the health world, there's a lot of evidence to say that if young women and young men can't articulate and feel that way, then it impacts on condom use, etc.
Jess, do you and your friends, girl friends, feel pressured?
Sometimes I think you can feel pressured, but as Max said, it's easy for a girl to say no, and that'll be the end of it.
But if you contrast, for example, what you experience online or on your mobile with your everyday life encounters with boys, do you feel more pressured online than you do in face-to-face relationships?
Yeah, I think I'd feel more pressured, especially if a boy kept asking me and badgering me about it, then I'd feel more
I'm
pressured.
telling you, you're beautiful. You know, I heard a really sad story from a girl who got in touch with Childline. She was a disabled girl, and a boy had told her that he thought she was stunningly beautiful, and no one had ever said anything like that to her in her life. And that way, he persuaded her to send explicit pictures, and then she felt terrible about what she'd done, and she realised that he was just persuading her.
Can I just move us on to the sex education scene there, in which the teacher said, so, you know, what do you want to put on your website, and what would help other kids to understand what's going on? What did you make of that, Max? Is that how you? What sort of sex education do you get?
In schools, we get like how to put on a condom, what STIs, what STDs are. We never get taught what not to do about sending photos and flirting and stuff, like kind of guidelines on what we should do. That's why often when a girl, especially, is faced with a situation of being asked for a picture, they don't know how to handle themselves.
Laura, what would you like to see in sex education? Did you like what you saw there of the teacher sort of trying to assemble?
I think it would be a lot easier if they went into more the relationship side of it, because at the moment it's really biological. Like, they teach the science of it, not the feelings that are attached to it and how we're supposed to cope with like being pressured and things like that. I think they need to go more into like the social aspect of it.
Are feelings attached to mobile traffic?
I'd say the majority of the time not, because a lot of the time it is just playful flirting or whatever you want to do, because the majority of the time you don't even meet these people that you talk to. But I think,
it a lark?
Yeah, I think some people do it in a group of friends just for a laugh, like just for fun. But if you do genuinely like the person that you're talking to, then that's when it could like upset you and get you hurt.
Do you know people who get very upset by what's happening?
Yeah, I know quite a few people who have been, like, a boy's told them she's pretty and stuff like that, and then after he's asked for a picture and she said no, that's it, and she gets upset, and I know of people who that's happened to.
But why do girls or even boys want to supply pictures? Why not say, I don't want to send you any pictures, thanks?
It's pressurized. It's become a part of our society nowadays. Like, it shouldn't be accepted, but it's done so commonly that it's become accepted or more accepted. So,
and sometimes, you know, this is called grooming.
Yeah.
That's what we called it. We did a report on it for Childline, and it was quite clear that young people were being groomed, maybe by other young people, but it can be just as heartbreaking. You've talked about feelings. I'm so pleased you've talked about feelings. You're quite right. That's the element that we need to ensure that young people understand. Love can make you feel wonderful, but the opposite can make you feel really sad.
Claire.
John, I just wanted to sort of throw in, having kind of looked at it, we always kind of talk about sexting or any particular media as exposure, as if it's somehow pressure bombarded, and yet I think when I've conducted research, communication it's an exchange. So what I want to explore is not to say, well, this is particularly wrong. It can be very pleasurable. I think about outcomes. Are the outcomes good for that young person? Or are the outcomes problematic for them? And that's the issue that I would like to encourage parents to talk about, schools to talk about. We've got to bring in the point that schools, because of the governance and anxiety about talking about pornography or talking about sex, it's a real problem. Yeah. And good quality education is essential.
Well, look, what would your message be to any adult who has any influence in all this? What would you like adults to do about it?
I think adults should sort of accept that this is what we do, and I don't want anyone to get too worried about it, like take their phones off their kids or anything, because it's just the modern way of life, how we're brought up, we're used to it. And I think that in schools we should probably get taught a lot more about the social aspect of it instead of the biological.
Very, very good. Thank you all three very much, and thank you both, Claire and Esther. Thank you. And that seems to be the message. Relationships teach a much more rounded version of sex education. Now, if you have any questions about that report, we've got John Brown from the NSPCC doing a live Q&A with us on Twitter right now. Follow @Channel 4 News or use the hashtag #GenerationSex.